Welcome to Learning Photography with Duck. Here's your host, Duck.
I can hear you, Al. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yep.
Al?
Yes. Can you hear me?
No, Bill, apparently Al's having problems. I don't know if he can hear us. He keeps going testing. He keeps testing his audio, but it's not, it's not the Lightroom edition. It's the Photoshop edition. There we go. Okie dokie. All right. Off to a good start here. Welcome once again to, you can hear us now? Awesome. You got it fixed. All right. We were wondering if we were going to have you join us today, but I guess everything's good. Al's got his sound on. All right. Another edition of Learning Photography with Duck. I am, as always, your host, Duck. And today is, of course, Lightroom edition. Oh, God. Not Lightroom edition. It's Photoshop edition. It's right there in my face. Oh, my God. It's been a busy week last week. It was a busy day today. So before we get started, as you guys know, I love working with a tablet. You've heard me talk about this in the past. You've probably heard me talk about my pen display that I use at home, and they are all Huion products. And of course, because I'm a Huion customer, they send me the occasional notification whenever they have a sale, and they're having a sale. So I just wanted to let you know, just in case you're interested, they're having a 30% off from May 5th through May 18th. So if you're in need of a tablet, or, you know, if you want to go big and get a pen displays are awesome. They're not really, needed for photo editing. It's meant more for illustrators and designers, but it's such a charm to work on. But anyway, if you're looking for a new tablet, or if you don't have a tablet and you want to get into working with a tablet, I love Huion products, so feel free. Also, I just got this notification. I've bought backgrounds from Background Town, and I am very thoroughly satisfied with their products. I have about 4 backgrounds from them, and I got a couple more that I'm eyeballing. So anyway, they're having a sale, 40% off on a select number of their products. They're more in the classical line. It's not their full product line, but anyway, they're having a sale. So if you are looking for a background for your photography, check these guys out. They're pretty awesome. It's print on demand, so and if you want custom ones, they can print custom ones. All right. So anyway, I was gonna do some things with what's the latest things that have popped up in Photoshop, but they're pretty much the same thing that's been that popped up with Lightroom, because Lightroom and Adobe Camera Raw share both the same things, and the things that they've done in Photoshop tends to be more along the lines of the back end stuff. And a few on their AI modules. They're really pushing the AI things. So one of these days, maybe we'll do a deep dive into some of the AI modules. And that's like color replace, portrait cleanup, and things like that. So today I figure what I do is I talk about my workflow for this photograph that I did, that I worked with 2 students that I have coming in for a mini internship from the West Haven High School. 2 great kids. They're pretty sharp. They're top of their class. And I've had them all week last week, and I have them all week this week. And I've been going kind of like through the gamut of the different types of photography that they can do. We did some landscape stuff. We did some portrait work. Walked them through like editing. And today I challenged them with this particular image. And this is the final result. So if you're interested, what I'll do is I'll walk you through the process of how it was shot and then how it was edited. All right. A lot of people think that something like this is very, very complex, but in reality, it's not. And I figured this might be a good precursor, because what I'm looking to do either later this month or early next month is do what I call a multiplicity photo shoot. And that's where we go out, we partner up with a partner, and we take multiple images of ourselves, and then we compose it in Photoshop using layers. So the technique for that is very similar to what we did here. And actually, you know what? I am forgetting that we gotta do this. All right. Here it is, the multiplicity photo shoot. I don't have a date for it. As soon as I do, I'll send it out for you guys. I do have an intro to Adobe Lightroom. If you have friends in any of your camera clubs that are hesitant about using Lightroom and you haven't quite convinced them from learning Lightroom yourself, you know, I will be giving a talk on Lightroom. It's an online presentation done through the CTPPA, May 30th at 7 p.m. They need to register at ctppa.com. All right, so you can go ahead and pass it on to your friends. Also, in June is the CTPPA's conference. It's a 3-day conference, a little weekend. I will be presenting along with some other top-notch photographers in our area, as well as a couple of noteworthy keynote speakers. So if you're looking to up your photography game, or if you want to find out a little bit about PPA, the Professional Photographers of America, or you know, come and join us. It's going to be a great weekend. All right. Speaking of which, I showed this off earlier. I got my certification, professional photographer certification. Woo woo! All right, going for my master's next. Okay. The other thing that I don't have here is this month's photo walk with CTPPA is going to be at Meg's Point. And of course, I don't have the calendar in front of me. Where's my calendar? It's going to be, again, unfortunately, it's going to be on a Wednesday. The 24th at 2 o'clock. 2 o'clock, Meg's Point. Meg's Point in Madison, which is at the beach there. Lots of cool things to photograph. It's very beautiful, very scenic out there. It's been a while since I've been there, so I'm kind of looking forward to going out. So if you can join us, awesome. That'd be great. It's a free photo walk. There was something else that I failed to write down, and I can't remember. When I'll remember, I'll pass it on to you guys. Because right now I can't remember. Okay. Anybody have any local news they want to share? Camera clubs? Bill, anything? No?
Nothing that I can think of.
Okay, no problem.
I don't know if it's too late for this. I think you have to be a member. Anyway, you would have to show up tomorrow for the in-person lecture on portrait photography. And then we're actually having the physical workshop on Saturday at Gillette Castle.
Oh, nice.
And we got models for it. If you go Saturday, it costs $15. If anybody is interested, send me a chat and I will see if it's okay for any new people at the last minute to go.
Okay. Okay, yeah. If anybody's interested, check it out. How would they know though? If
Oh, I would, if person asks me, if person tells me through chat that they're interested, they
okay,
give me
so
their
contact
cell
you.
number. If they give me their cell number, I'll call Laura Parisi, she's running it. And
Okay.
see if if it's open to a non-member.
Awesome. Okay. I remember what it was that I wanted to tell you. Last year, I volunteered with the Joe Abate Charitable Foundation. The Joe Abate Charitable Foundation is a foundation that runs a summer camp for children who have some kind of heart problem, either a ongoing heart problem or recovering from a heart problem. Whether it's an ongoing problem or if they've gone through surgery or whatever. I was asked to volunteer my services as a photographer to kind of document one of the days. They try to spread the love among different photographers. I actually ended up doing 2 days at the camp. It was a lot of fun. And for me personally, it means a lot because I have a very good childhood friend that I lost to heart disease at a very young age. So this association is very near and dear to my heart. They sent me a letter asking if I was interested in volunteering my services again this year. And unfortunately, I'm not able to. My knee, talk about getting old, my knee's been giving out, and I don't think I can do a full day running around after a bunch of kids at a summer camp. So I have to decline. However, I did tell him that I would pass the word on. The dates are August 23rd through the 26th. It's a full day. They start at 9 a.m. And they go on until 9 p.m. You don't have to do the whole 9 to 9 thing. They'll be more than happy with whatever amount of time you're willing to donate. So if you are interested in donating your services as a photographer, just a bunch of event photographers, there's no pressure. It's not like you're required to produce top quality images. They just want to document the kids having fun and doing their activities throughout the day. So if you're looking to learn event photography, this is a perfect way to learn. If you're a pro and you want to give back to the community, this is a great way of doing it. Again, it's August 23rd through the 26th. You can volunteer 1 day, half day, multiple days, whatever you want. Let's see, 9 to 9 the first 3 days, 9 to 1 on the fourth and final day. All right. It is at Camp Awasting, Camp Awasting in Morris, Connecticut. So just northeast of Waterbury. All right, it's a great little camp. It's right on the lake. So anyway, if you're interested, drop me a private message or email me, and I will send you the information. All right. So anyway, that's the last thing that I forgot that I wanted to share with you. All right. So close that up. Okay. So what did we do today? Well, you saw the final results. All right. So what I want to do is kind of take you through a little bit of the process. If you've never done anything as complex as as anything to do with splash, it's a lot of fun, and it really isn't as difficult as it seems. It's one of those photos that if you put it into your portfolio, it makes people go, wow, how the hell did he do that? All right. And it really isn't that difficult. I did it with 2 strobes, one for the product and one for the background. Okay. So you can see here, oh, wait. Wrong image. Come on, get back to the top. Here we go. All right, so the first thing we did is we kind of set up the framing for the shot. I put a glass onto a clamp, and I suspended a bunch of grapes from fishing line. That was pretty much my setup. And we did a test to kind of show the kids, you know, how it was going to go. We practiced with water first. And it says, okay, well, obviously, you know, the water kind of disappears. There's very low contrast because we have a very dark background. So I says, go ahead and pick a color. And they chose this color for the background. All right, which I thought was kind of nice because it contrasted nicely against that deep burgundy red of the wine that we use. It was actually grape juice. Not going to waste good wine tossing it around like this. That's alcohol abuse. So I had them practicing with water first, and you can see that they're kind of like all over the place. Lots of misses. All right. Because it really isn't the getting that splash isn't as easy as it seems. It takes a little bit of a flick of the wrist and just enough pressure without getting water all over the place. All right, so lots and even more lots and lots of practices. All right, and then we switched and had the other kid try it from the glass side because we wanted 2 streams coming in from each side. And he actually did better, a few misses, but he did relatively good. And then we gave it a try for the splash coming out of the glass. Okay, so now time for the real deal. Okay, we start off with getting the splash of the wine coming out of the goblet. All right, and it's very simple. We just fill it up and we give it a bang from underneath in order to create a splash. And we photographed the splash. And we got it on the second try. This is the shot that I actually ended up using. Then we went to throwing the wine against the left side of the glass. And we had a few bad attempts, some misses. This one came out pretty good for the splash, not quite for the projectile across, but this is one that we used. This is another one that we used. Here he actually hit it. So as you can see, a lot of trial and error trying to get that, who knows what happened here, trying to get that nice looking splash. And we ended up taking 98 frames total between, when we started with the practices. Al, do me a favor, just mute yourself.
Sorry.
Thanks.
Sorry.
No problem. 98 frames. So almost 100 images in total from beginning, the setup, the practicing, and then the actual tossing of the juice. All right. Some valiant attempts, some interesting results, obviously going to be used, but we finally ended up getting it. This last shot, it was perfect. He said, we got it. We don't need to do any more. And the only thing that was needed now was to get the bottom of the glass out of the clamp. And I told I told one of the kids, do me a favor. I'm going to hold the glass. I'm going to release the clamp. Just swing the clamp out of the way. Well, he swung it out of the way, but it was still in view of the camera. All right. So we had to retake it, and a couple of shots. This is the one I ended up using. Okay. The final shot is just a blank shot of just the background wall color. And this becomes kind of like the base for all the other images. All right. And then when it's all put together, this is the final results. Now that you saw the individual pieces, you can probably pick them out here. Okay. So how do we do an image like this? Okay. So the first thing is, analyzing what it is, all the individual parts, and trying to, in your head, kind of piece them together. All right. And this was fairly easy because we know we wanted a splash coming in from the left, a splash coming in from the right, and a splash coming out of the goblet. So as long as we had those three elements in place, we were pretty good. All right. Along the way, there were a couple other happy little accidents that says, ooh, we can use that here. We can use that there. All right. So that's what we ended up doing. And in the end, we came up with eight images. All right. Let me blow this up. These were the 8 images that we ended up using. So the first one, the goblet. The second one, happy little accident. I love the way the wine splashed on the underside of the goblet. So I kind of flagged that and says we can probably use that. The third one has the stream coming in, hitting the glass. The fourth one and fifth one, I couldn't quite make up my mind which one I was going to use for the side where the wine hits the grapes. So I kind of flagged them both. And then the last one, not necessarily for the stream coming in to hit the grapes, but rather the results of it hitting the grapes right in the center. I thought that was perfect. And then, of course, the last one is a clean shot of the base of the glass in order to remove that clamp. Okay? Everybody understands all the pieces? Easy enough, right? Okay. So the first thing I do is, while I am in Lightroom, I'm going to do a little bit of color correction. I'm going to do a little bit of sharpening, and whatever else I want in order to prepare my images to go into Photoshop in order to do the arrangement. Okay. So it didn't really take too much, because I also knew that I was going to be doing extensive work in Photoshop. So things like spot removal, although really spot removal with wine droplets all over the place, that's almost impossible. So things like spot removal, I wasn't worried about. Trying to attempt it in Lightroom just doesn't make any sense when I can do that in Photoshop. Okay. All right. So I click on the first, shift click on the last. And if you right click, all right, you're going to get the menu and it's going to say edit in. And normally you would, if you clicked on one image, you go edit in Adobe Photoshop. But because we have multiple images that are going into the same file, all right, if you go all the way down to the bottom, it says open as layers in Photoshop. Open as layers in Photoshop. Okay. And what that's going to do is it's going to import those automatically for you into a, let me go to Photoshop here. It will import them into a stack of images. All right. Now, I'm not gonna do all the work because obviously, we got a limited amount of time. But I am going to kind of walk you through the process. All right. Actually, let's see. Actually, you know what? I think what we can do is, let me open, edit and open as layers in Photoshop. And it should open up. Yeah. Okay. All right, so it takes a few minutes to load all the layers. And as you can see, it brings them in one at a time, adds them on top. Okay. Give that a second. Let me get my stool here because I'm probably going to want to sit down for this. All right. Bring this down. Okay. Awesome. Once all the layers are in, it's a matter of now for me to kind of sort of arrange what order I want these in. In this particular case, there's probably not too critical, but there are some things that we need to take to keep in mind. Obviously, any layer that you put on top of another layer is going to hide the layer below it. So as you can see here, the only visible image that you see is that very, very top layer. It's hiding everything beneath it. So I have to be aware that there are going to be certain elements that I'm going to be pulling out and masking that need to logically sit on top of a layer. So for example, the stream of wine coming in, hitting the glass, because it's hitting and impacting the glass, I need that splash to sit on top of this particular layer. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn all these off. All right. And we're going to start with our clean layer. I have a clean background shot. And anytime you do any kind of compositing, try to remember to get this particular type of image, a clean image with nothing on it. It just makes putting everything together a little bit easier. Okay. All right. So we're going to start with this. And this is only needed for the bottommost part of the glass. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a very rough selection just around here. All right. Oh, and I am really, really rough. Okay. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and add a mask. Okay. Oops. I gotta make sure that the layer you're working on is selected. Okay. So that's selected. Click on mask, and I have my masks created. All right, and if you notice, you're gonna see that the background color doesn't quite match, and I can tell you why. Because stupid me forgot to take a photo of that clean background until afterwards, so I had to kind of turn everything back on, try to remember what setting that flash was on in order to take take that shot. But that can be fixed very easily. Okay. All right. So we got part one. The next one is, well, I don't want that one. The next one I actually want is this one here. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and bring that down to stack. All right, and the only thing I want from this is the upper part. All right, so I'm going to very roughly create a selection. I'll get those two little droplets here. Why not? No, you know what? Never mind. I don't think I need those droplets. So let's just, okay. Rough. No need to get fancy here. Got that. Make a mask. Okay. And now you can see that, well, my base is a little off from the splash. And that's because I was hand holding it and I wasn't quite holding it in the same exact spot. Not a big deal. We just go to our move tool, select that, and I can go ahead and move it into place. All right, and actually rotate it just a little bit. Okay. And line it up until it looks like a full glass. Okay, so now I'm kind of guessing here. Okay, kind of guessing here, and I don't want to guess. Okay, because if I guess, something may go wrong. All right, so I'm going to undo that. All right, and I'm going to show you a better technique. Okay, first thing we're going to do is we're going to turn off the masks. And this upper one that's got the splash, that's what I'm going to line up to. So I'm going to take the lower layer and manipulate it to the upper layer. So I'm going to give that upper layer, I'm going to reduce the opacity until I can see the layer below it. Okay. 50 to 75% usually works really, really well. All right, then still with my move tool, I'm going to go to the layer below it. Okay, and now as I move it, I can see what it looks like in relation to that layer above it. So now I can rotate and align and place that in position a little bit more. All right. And then if you want to nudge things, you can use the arrow keys to nudge it left, right, up and down ever so slightly. All right. And then rotate a little bit, nudge it up. It doesn't have to be perfect. All right, because we are just stealing one little part of it. So as long as it kind of sort of looks like it flows, that's all we need. All right, so that looks good. I'm going to go ahead and commit it by clicking on this little arrow. You can hit the enter key. All right. And I'm going to turn my masks back on, and voila. Okay. So I have, and we also have to remember to turn the opacity back up to 100. Okay. Okay. Any questions about that? How to align one layer to the other? Fairly easy, right? Okay. All right. Continuing on with my composite here. Okay. So we got the glass. We got the splash coming out of the glass. Next thing I want to do is I want to get that splash that comes in from the left-hand side and hits the glass. And looking at my layer stack here, I can see that it's the second one down. So I'm going to go ahead and put that on. Okay. And now I have to start making decisions. Okay. I have to start making artistic decisions. And sometimes they're very easy. In this case, it's going to be a little bit complicated because we got some serious interaction with the glass. All right. And if you remember, we have this kind of pouring out kind of like this, right? So a lot of this would overlap. I don't want to overlap that splash. I want to kind of keep that splash isolated. So I have to be careful with how I render the upper part of this. Okay. The other thing I have to consider is all this splashing around. How many of these water or these wine droplets do I want? Okay. All right. Now, I could use this, pretty much entire thing and just kind of composite that, the wine spilling out of the glass. But during the shoot, let me turn this off. During the shoot, I saw this image. Okay. Now this particular image it was a miss. It was a total failure in the attempt at splashing onto the grapes. All right. It actually missed the grapes and part of it hit the bottom part of the glass. You can see it right here. All right. When I saw this, I go, ooh, I kind of like the way it hit the bottom of that glass. I think I can use it. Okay. So that's a consideration. All right. So I'm going to take that one and I'm going to move it down and apply it above what we recently just did. Okay. So here, let me grab the lasso tool and I just want to grab that part of the splash, right? And it doesn't have to be anything crazy. You can always add and subtract from a mask very easily. So I'm just doing very roughly, okay? So here I'm going to go ahead and add a mask after making my selection, okay? And I can go ahead and click on the move tool and make adjustments to it to get it in place. Kind of sort of like that. All right, up a little bit higher. Okay, good. All right, so that's my third image, kind of now starting to layer on top. All right, and you can see how now at this point the order of layers starts being important. If I were to place that below my goblet, you can see that the goblet, we'd lose everything in front of the goblet. So paying attention to the order of your layers is now starting to play an important part. Okay, now we can go ahead. Oh, where is it? This one here. I'm going to bring that down, apply it above. Okay, and now I have to make decisions based on that splash that goes here, right? That kind of hooks this way. All right. That's a terrible color for my pen because it's blending into that background. I should probably pick something a little bit, a little, let me change my pen color. Hold on one second. Draw. Let's try. Oops. Let's try. Oh, wait a minute. Okay. There we go. That's visible, right? Okay. All right. So we had that splash here. All right. That we have to be careful how this one here overlaps with that previous one. So this is kind of cool. This is definitely cool because it's showing the impact onto the goblet, right? And we definitely want this. All right. So I'm thinking I can probably keep everything above this line here. Everything above this line. Okay. So with it selected, I'm going to get my lasso tool. I'm going to grab all of that splash, the majority of this, and a good chunk of that. All right, and now add a mask. Okay. If I want to, I can again add a little opacity, use my move tool in order to position that properly. Okay. And that looks decent enough right about there. Okay. All right. So that pretty much takes care of the glass and the splash on the glass. Now let's introduce the grapes. All right. The grapes, I actually have two images. This one here, which kind of hit a little low on the grapes, but I like the way this looks. Okay. Then we have this one. Where is it? Then we have this one. It's an interesting stream. Okay. And it kind of matches the other one, but it doesn't really have any style to it. So I think I'm going to skip that one and just do this one. Oh, not that one. That one. Okay. But before I go into that one, I need to introduce you to this one. Okay. Because this particular splash really has a lovely interaction going on right here on the grapes themselves. I mean, that stream hit dead on and just splattered everywhere. All right, it's what I called sploosh. All right, it's not just a splash, it's actually a sploosh. Okay, so I want to keep that, and I'll lose this part. This part we can, rework. All right, but because we are working with this, I have to pay attention to how it is interacting with the grapes. As you can see, this is a pretty wide stream. If we were to use this one, if we were to use this one, this is very narrow, all right? It won't match that, right? However, if we use this one is pretty wide. It will match. It just needs to move up. Make sense? Okay. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to utilize this. So again, make sure. Oh, wrong button. Where is it? Okay. All right, we're going to use that. So make sure your layer is selected. All right. Select your lasso tool. I'm going to select a little bit onto the glass. It doesn't matter because we're all going to lose it. And this whole nice splash. And I'm just going to go ahead and cut out that other part. I don't need it. Okay. Okay. Once I have it selected, I add a mask. Okay, there we go. Turn this one on. I only need the splash along the bottom of the grapes there. All right, so I'm gonna take my lasso tool a little bit into the grapes. I'm just gonna go ahead and select all that splash down there. Okay. Lasso, create a mask. Oh, wait a minute. See, I did it wrong. Make sure that the layer is selected before you make your mask. Make the mask. All right, and you can see that it's actually in the wrong place. All right, we will need to obviously move it up and we'll make the connection somehow. Okay. So those are our layers. All right, and then this one here, let me move that to the top. This one here, I'm not going to use. So I'm just going to push that all the way to the bottom for now. I'll, since I already did this, I already know I eventually got rid of it. So, but normally I would just push it down out of the way. All right. Just in case. But in this case, we're not going to use it. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that layer. Okay. Now, at this point, I suggest take a few seconds and rename your layers. All right, we got the background layer. We have the base. All right, goblet base. Okay. This one is the wine or the goblet splash. Next one up, that's, what's this one? Oh, that's the goblet base splash. You can name it whatever makes sense to you. This one's goblet pour. It's not really a pour. It's a throw, but we'll call it a pour. Next one up is the grapes. And last one is our grape pour. Okay. So we have them all labeled. Now, it may not seem like a big deal labeling at this point, but later on, when you start getting into a heavily manipulated stack where you're adding other elements inside, it's nice having the ability to look through and see what's what amongst everything. Okay, so here it is. Here's our background. Here's our goblet base, the splash, the glass sploosh. Okay, that's what I named it. Our grapes, the grape pour, and the glass splash. Oops, and so on. Okay. All right. Let me close that up. Come back to this one. Okay. Now you can see that there's a color difference between all the backgrounds, and that's because I messed up. All right, and grabbing my background layer. All right, so what we can do is we can actually create a curves adjustment, and we can see if we can kind of sort of match it a little bit better. Okay, probably not. All right, so it's not a big deal. So I'm going to go ahead and delete that. I'm also going to lock my background layer. You probably don't need to, but I do it just for in case. I don't want to, you know, accidentally do anything to my background. All right, now at this point, it's a matter of putting everything together. All right, so what I'm going to do now is take my time. I'm going to go ahead and grab a brush. All right, a nice hard round brush. But what I'm going to do is whenever I use a hard brush, it's not really 100% hard. I like to go anywhere between 70 to 80% hardness, right? Because what that's going to do is it's going to give me a little bit of a feather edge on the brush, okay? So with my mask selected, okay, I need white as my foreground color, so I'm going to go ahead and switch this, okay? Or you can use the letter X on the keyboard. I'm going to make sure that white is my foreground color and black is my background. If you want to reset it, you can click on that double little icon here in the corner, okay? And now, if let me pull this up. If I paint on my mask, make sure that you have 100% opacity, 100% flow, okay? If I paint on there, it's going to paint white, okay? And then with the letter X, if I switch it, I can paint black, all right? And just with those two movements, the brush and the X key, I can toggle back and forth. All right, so if you look here, toggle back and forth with the letter X. Okay. Let me undo what I just did. And what we're going to do is we're just going to mask out. All right, take your time, paint out the mask, or paint out around your subject. Take your time. I'm being sloppy right now, all right, because I've already done this. But you're going to take your time cutting this out from the background, okay? And you don't have to be exact, all right? And I'll show you why in a second. So one of the problems I said is that my background and the blank plate of the background that I took doesn't quite match because I actually ended up breaking down and then resetting everything. So what you can do, let me zoom in. All right, if you have a little bit hanging over, all right, actually let me go ahead and just make a lot hanging over, all right. Right above that layer, I'm going to go ahead and make a curves adjustment, okay. And while the curves adjustment panel is out, if you look down at the bottom, you're going to see this little icon. This is the clipping icon. What this will do is it will clip it to the layer below. So what's telling Photoshop to do is that this layer is only going to affect the layer immediately below it and nothing else, okay? So let me turn that off. If I make an adjustment, you can see that it's adjusting on everything, all the layers from here and below. So everything here and below. All right, by clipping it, I'm only affecting that one layer, right? Make sense? Okay. So now what I can do is I can just click here and work this until it kind of sort of disappears. All right, let me go to the blue channel, add a little bit of blue. All right, red channel, maybe add a little bit of red. All right. And just like that, it kind of sort of disappears. All right. So obviously I left a lot of the edge showing to show you what that looks like. Okay. There's a slight difference. I don't know if you guys can see it in the video. There's a slight difference, but that doesn't matter because we just go back to our mask. Black is our foreground color. I can go up fairly close without being exact. Okay. Now I don't have to worry about being exact up against there. All right, because that tiny little edge is not going to be noticeable. All right. And if you make a mistake, no worries. We just change it to white and we paint back our what we accidentally rubbed out. Okay. Any questions on masking? This is all very basic masking techniques. Right? Very basic masking technique. All right. At this point, you're just going to go through every layer and do the same exact thing. Click on the mask. Get your brush, black as your foreground color. You're going to get rid of that edge as much as possible. If the color is way off, again, curves adjustment, clip it to the layer below. All right. In this case, we're going to lighten it up just a little bit. Take our red down. Oh, no, we're going to add a little bit of red. Take our blue, add a little bit of blue. Go back to our RGB, darken it up. And just like that, almost completely matches it. Okay. Square brackets to make your brush size bigger or smaller. Oop, wrong one. Make sure you're on the mask. Okay. Oh, silly me. Okay. All right. So I'm kind of glad it did that because now you can see that it's kind of, once I've added that color correction, it can be kind of difficult to see exactly what you got and what you missed. All right. So what I'm going to do at this point is, because I really don't like straining my eyes more than I have to. I'm already looking at a computer screen quite a lot. So what I want to do is I want to add some kind of something that's going to allow me to see that edge a little better. So what do? I pick something that is going to contrast it. All right. So for that, what I'm going to do is right above my background layer. Here's my background layer. I've selected my background layer. Right above it, I'm going to create a solid color adjustment. All right. So you go all the way to the bottom. All right, here we go. Go all the way to the bottom, a little circle that's half black, half white. Excuse me. Then I select that solid color. All right. And it's going to create a solid color adjustment. All right. And pick something garish. Pick something that's really going to contrast. All right. So that right there, that's going to contrast anything and everything that I have in my photographs, right? Now I can see those edges fairly clearly. Okay. So go back to my mask. Make sure you got your mask selected. My brush, black for my foreground color. And now I can really work that edge a lot tighter. Again, remember, it doesn't have to be perfect because we kind of sort of color matched it to our background. All right. Take your time, resize accordingly. Do as much work as you feel it needs. If you want to go all the way up to the edge, go all the way up to the edge. All right. It doesn't matter. Okay. All right. But here is where we run into our first blending challenge. All right. And that is where we are blending one part of the stem with the other part of the stem. All right. So if I turn that off, there's our, the stem from the one that I handheld. Okay. And if I want, I can go ahead and clean that up a little bit more. Okay. And there's part of the stem. And so you can see right here. Oh, great. I picked the color that matches. All right, never mind. Let's go here. Let's change that. There we go. I picked the color that matched. All right, right there is our break point between one and the other. Okay, so how do we correct that? Well, the nice thing is when we are working with masks, all right, let me pull this one up. If I press and hold the Alt key and click on it, this is what my mask looks like. So this is part of the stem that overlaps the other stem, right? White is 100% see-through. Black is 100% hidden. All right. So what do you think will give us 50% see-through, 50% hidden? 50% gray. Okay. So we can use gray to our benefit. All right. But I don't want to pull out a gray brush, because if I go ahead and change this to my 50% gray, all right, and I paint here, it's gonna undo what I've done with the black, all right, and it just makes a mess. Because so what do I have to do now? I have to be careful in how I paint. I don't want to do that. That's ridiculous. All right. That's going to leave me some weird edges. So that's not what I want to do. Okay. However, if I keep it to black and I go all the way up to the top for my opacity, if I change that to 50, it's going to lay down 50% gray. All right. Or rather, no, 50% black. Okay. It's 50% of black. Okay. If I change that to 20%, it's going to apply 20% black, and so on, right? The nice thing is, if I apply a second coat, notice what happens where it overlaps. Okay. That overlap is now 40% gray. And now if I overlap it more, okay, we're getting 60% gray, 40% gray, 20% gray, and so on. All right, so it's adding 20% every time I make a pass. So if I say, let's do 10%, okay, let's come back out. Get myself a nice round brush. Oh, come on, what's going on here? Nice round brush, and I start very carefully blending the two. Now you see that that seam has completely disappeared. All right, and I've blended the two together. All right, what does it look like? This is what it looks like. All right. So what I'm doing is I'm just going upwards into that stem. Okay. And there we go. All right. Probably a little bit too much. There we go. Okay. And I got a perfectly seamless stem. Easy, easy peasy. All right. All right. So honestly, guys, at this point, I'm just kind of stressing tools that we've already covered in the past. All right. And if you've been a little afraid to try these, don't be afraid. It really is this easy. And like I said, you can't mess it up. All right. If you mess it up, you just undo it. Okay. All right. So there's our, all right. Now, once you fix that, make sure that you go back and you change your opacity back to 100. All right. And if you remember, there are shortcut keys. The numbers on your keyboard that run across the top will give you the shortcut. 1 changes it to 10%. Here, let me, all right. 1 changes it to 10%. 5 is 50. 9 is 90. And 0 is 100. Okay. So you can either click and drag it back and forth or just hit the 0 key. Okay. So if you drag it back and forth, it's going to give you any iteration in between. All right. I just like using the keyboard. Okay. Make sure you go back to 100% in order to continue working on your mask, right? Okay. That's masked out. We go to the next one. This one's a little tricky because, as you can see, we have a bunch of splashes. So how can we tackle this one in a way that will allow us to do it a little bit more effectively? Okay. And as you can see, it's even coming down onto the stem. There's interaction with the stem. All right, so I want to just go back to my move tool. Make sure and I'm just going to move it over a little bit until it lines up there. That's even better. Okay. So how can we do this? Well, we can take the brush, and if you have time, all right, make sure you have your mask selected, and you can go ahead and start painting. All right. Well, guess what's going to happen? After a while, you're going to start going bug-eyed, and you're going to start cursing me from a distance because I did not teach you a shortcut for this. All right. So here, let me make sure I get these little droplets here. Yeah. Okay. We can use a shortcut. All right. We have this magic wand tool, magic wand. Okay. We're going to select our magic wand and make sure that the image on the layer is selected, not the mask. Make sure the image is selected. Okay. And I'm going to select all this orange, basically anything that is background. All right. So what it'll do is it'll select all that background stuff. All right. Now, if you notice, you're probably saying to yourself, well, you know, it's doing all this crazy stuff and it's kind of leaving a little bit of the edge. It's not quite going to the edge, okay? So that becomes a problem, all right? Because if I go ahead and, let me just do a temporary thing here. Make sure black is your foreground color, all right? If I go in and paint out that area, you're going to notice that it leaves this kind of like edge. That's not a good thing. Why is it leaving the edge? It's leaving the edge because it's picking up that little bit of blur caused by our mask. Okay, so the mask is now interfering with our better selection. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and undo that. I'm going to temporarily block my mask. All right, and if you press and hold the shift key and then click on your mask, it's going to temporarily turn it off. Okay, and now we can see our entire image. Okay, so now I can go back to my magic wand tool, and if I click on that orange color, my background color, all right, everywhere you look, now you can see that it's selecting outside of what we actually need, which is all right. That's okay. Okay. Once you've got that selected, we can go ahead and shift click on our mask again. Okay. And look at that. That edge that it selected previously is no longer selected. So now I can go grab my brush, make it a little bit larger. Okay. Black is my foreground color. And if I want, I can go ahead and start painting, or I can do Alt Delete. Okay, Alt Delete. And what it does is it fills in that selection with my foreground color, which in this case is black. Okay, so that's a quick way of doing it. Now, once that's done, Control D deselects it, and you can now decide, okay, maybe I want to get rid of some of these little droplets here and here and here, maybe this edge here, okay? This is where you'll take your time and do your cleanup, all right? Get rid of these tiny ones that will never, ever appear, all right? Maybe these. All right, so you do your cleanup. But if we zoom in even tighter, you can see that's a really lousy mask. Okay, that's a lousy mask. All right, and we're seeing a little glitch here. So we can take this and we can mask all of this out along. Let me zoom out a little bit. I will go ahead and mask out up to this line here. That's what I want to preserve. So anything above that, I'm just going to go ahead and mask out. Okay. And if you ever want to check, Alt, Mask. All right, there, I missed some spots there. Okay. Alt, Mask brings us back. All right, so how do we fix these little areas here? All right, all that really nasty edge. Okay, well, we can, again, use the brush tool and go around. But if we do that, what's going to happen? You're going to be cursing me by, gosh, darn it, Duck, why didn't you teach me an easier way of doing this than having to manually go around this entire edge? Okay, well, there is, and I'm going to show you. All right, while you have the mask selected, okay, if you double click, it's going to bring you to our mask selection properties. All right. And right here, we'll see under, oh, escape. Come on. Frustration. Where were we? Oh, yeah. Here we go. Come on. All right. Oh, did I get the right one? I did not get the right one. Where were we? This one here, right? Yeah. Okay. Oh, come on. I think I'm clicking too fast. Okay. All right. As we go down, little mouse problem there, or tablet problem, right? We're going to skip refine mode. We're going to skip edge detection. We don't need that because we've already detected our edges. We've already made our selection. But we're going to go and to global refinements. And if that's not active, just click on the down arrow. All right. We have smooth, feather, contrast, and shift edge. Shift edge. Okay. We're going to use a combination of these. All right. The smooth probably isn't really needed because if we follow this edge, it's fairly smoothed out to begin with. It's a little pixelated, but there's not a lot of jaggedness to it. It does a decent job following the outline. All right, so we don't really need smooth, all right, because what happens is if you apply too much smoothing, right, we start losing a little bit of that edge definition. So you have to be careful with this. Especially have sharp corners that come to a point, it will actually round it off. So be careful with that, okay? But we will be using our feather, all right? So the feather edge, what it does is it just adds a little feather transition, all right? So basically it goes from white to black and it just blurs that in between the white and the black by generating some a gray transition. Okay, that's all it does. All right, how much is going to be dependent on the size of what you are masking. In this case, we're masking little things. All right, these little droplets. So obviously we can't go too big with our mask because then the mask overrides the edges and we just get too big. All right, but we just want to go in and soften those edges, get rid of all that pixelation. Okay, all right, so let's see if I can explain this properly using my hands. Actually, let me go here. Okay, when we have a hard transition, we have black and we have white up against each other, right? When we apply a feather, we're going to say, okay, I want the black to move towards the black and I want the white to move towards the white. All right, so we're creating space. And then in the space in between, I want to do a gradation between white and black. So it's going to go light gray, medium gray, dark gray, black, right? Make sense? Okay. Then that's our feather. Then we look at it and it says, well, all right, we've smoothed all that area between the black and the white, but now I want to regain the sharpness of that edge, all right? And the sharpness of the edge is created by contrasting closer and closer. All right, so this is where that contrast slider comes in. So what we're doing is we're saying all the gray, dark gray pixels that abut the black side and all the light gray pixels that abut the white side are now going to shift in that direction. We're going to make the gray, the dark gray darker, the light gray lighter, so it goes to black and it goes to white. And what that does is it really tightens up that line. I hope I explained that properly. Okay, so what does it look like? Okay, well, let me exaggerate the feathering here. You can see how that feathering kind of makes it look blurry. All right, so now as I apply contrast, look what it does to that edge. It sharpens it right back up. Okay. All right. And now, if you look, all that pixelated edge has now been cleaned up. Okay. All right, so that solves that problem, but we still have one problem left. And if you notice, we're still getting that background color kind of creeping in along our edge, all right? Because it did a decent job, but not a perfect job. So for that, we're going to use our shift edge, and we're just going to shift our edge. If we go in one direction, you can see that it shifts outward. And if we move it in the other direction, we notice that it shifts inward. So we're just going to shift inward a little bit, okay? And adjust your feather accordingly. Okay, until you get a nice, yeah, there we go, cleaned up edge, okay? And then once you find that it looks good, we hit OK. And it brings us back out. Okay. And we zoom out and we have a nice, beautiful selection. Okay. All right. Use that trick wherever you see fit. Okay. Obviously, it works best in a situation like this where you have a very clean, simple colored background. When you have a subject against a cluttered background or textured background, it doesn't quite work as well for making quick selections. But you can take and create your mask and then refine your mask later. Okay. All right. Moving up, we go to the next one. Let me zoom out. Okay. And again, here I'm just going to, where is it? Temporarily turn off my mask, get my magic wand tool on the image, not the mask, on the image. I'm going to go ahead and click. All right. If you're not getting all of it, if you notice up at the very top, it says tolerance 10. Okay, I usually keep it there. I'll make multiple passes, but if you increase that, what it does is increases the similarity gamut between, you know, one color and the other. Okay, I usually don't bother because it's easy to just for me to just go ahead and click. All right. Obviously, I'm clicking more areas than I need, but my original mask, remember, is just this part here. So that's all I care about. All right, so I want to make sure that part is well cleaned up. Okay. Shift click on my mask, turns it off. Okay. Now I make sure your mask is selected. Black is my foreground color, so I'm going to go Alt, Delete. All right. And then Control Delete to get rid of the marching ants. Double click. All right. You might want to zoom in. Okay. Little bit of smoothing, some feathering. Give me that nice contrast edge. And I'm going to reduce my edge. Hit OK. Just like that. That's done. Okay. So once you get used to the process, it's literally that quick. All right. All right. Next one. Again, I'm going to go ahead and select my image. I'm going to turn that off. Select around what I'm trying to block out. And I want to make sure that these little open areas get selected as well. All right, all those. Oh, there, and there. All right, that's looking good. That's looking good. Okay, zoom back out. Shift on my mask, select my mask, Alt, delete, gets rid of that. Control D gets rid of the marching ants. Okay, and now, for some reason that's out of whack. There we go. Okay. All right, and now here I have to do a little bit more cleanup. Okay, well, let's do this. All right, my feather, my contrast, my shift edge. Okay, good enough. All right, and we can see that there are little leftovers from the suspension from the fishing line, right? Well, this part here is easy because we can just mask that out. Okay, so with the mask selected, brush, black is my foreground color, I just go in and clean that up. All right, but here, let me get rid of that. Here you can see I have part of the string showing. All right, let me zoom in. Hopefully you guys can see that. All right, actually I can go ahead and mask this part out. Okay, so make sure that your image file or your image is selected on the image layer. Okay, and at this point you can use whatever tool is good for you. Mental block. Spot healing, all right, or the clone tool, whatever works best. And you're just going to go ahead and clean that up. I'm going to clean all that up, make it look good. All right, and just like that, that little bit of fishing line is now removed. Let me look down at the bottom. Oh, here we go. I'll get rid of the fishing line there. Go back to my mask, select the mask, brush, black is my foreground color, and get rid of any vestiges on the mask. All right. And then these little corners, remember how I said, you know, when you use that smooth tool, it really wreaks havoc. All right, this is a good example. Oop, missed a spot right here. Probably not a big deal. All right, but again, the more careful you are with your mask, the better your results are going to be. All right. Now, obviously, I still have that blue temp layer. If I turn it off, you can see that it kind of sort of blends in very well. I might have to do a little color correction. You can see that the background here and the background here are looking a little off. Okay. Oh, I got a spot right there that I got to get rid of too. Okay. All right. Last one. This one becomes a little tricky. All right, because this one now has to kind of line up with this one. Okay. So that means part of this is going to be masked out, okay? So again, we can take and reduce the opacity so we can see some of the layer below it, okay? Go to my mask, let me zoom in, okay? On my mask, get my brush, make it a little bit bigger. Black is my foreground color. I can go ahead and mask out where it kind of overlaps here, right? All right. And bring this back up, the opacity, good, all right. And now it's a matter of making them blend, all right. And you can see, because there is a lot of chaos going on, our eye really doesn't pick up exactly where one leaves off and one begins, all right? But if we use that trick we learned earlier, where we take our opacity, I'm going to go ahead and make that 10%. So I hit the 1 key, changes it to 10%. White as my foreground color because I want to start adding it in. And I just very carefully start blending where one matches over the other, okay? All right, and in this case, and if you go too far, just change it back to black, increase my density here, 50%, okay? And then just work your edges until it looks like, you know, it flows together. You'll never can tell. Make sense? All right. All right, we need to remove these here. All right, so I'm going to go back to 100%. Black is my foreground color. And I'm going to go ahead and reveal those underlying ones again. Okay. All right, and we can use the same trick to get rid of all that orange color. Right? I'm not gonna go ahead and do it right now. You should know that trick should be ingrained in you right now. Okay. Any questions about layering the order according to what overlaps what? Okay. Using very simple masking tools to isolate the elements in order to blend them together. Any questions?
I am certainly gonna have to watch this again on YouTube. I had to tell you, those two young men that were with you this whole week, they got their money's worth. They're probably at home right now with a cold towel on their forehead.
Probably, yes. Probably.
But
yeah.
This is absolutely fantastic. This is exactly what I wanted to get into. And
Okay.
I had no clue.
Awesome.
It was this. I had no clue how to start.
All right.
And this is certainly groundbreaking for
Okay.
me.
Awesome. Cool. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and leave this one here because this is the core principle of getting all the elements together into your file. From here, it's a matter of refining, and I'll show you what I did in my other file. All right. So if I go to the finished file, let me just go down the line, okay? And you can see that, actually, let me go here, all right? I actually ended up darkening my background just a little bit in order to match the other elements, okay? All right, and let me go ahead and turn all these off and explain what I did. All right, so, okay. So the first thing is exactly what I just walked through in the other part, all right, where I isolated each one individually. Okay. So these are all my isolations. Is that all of them? Yeah, that's it. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. All right. So these are all the isolations. And you can see, let me go ahead and create that solid color adjustment. We'll make that a ghastly color. Say okay. And you can see not all of my edges are clean. All right. I really didn't bother too much. Okay. As a matter of fact, this one you can see vestiges where I really am rather sloppy with my mask. Okay. You can see how sloppy this mask is, right? Right. There's gray there. There's areas of that I just completely failed to get. Okay. But you'll never, they're so minor, all right? And the backgrounds match so well because I made that adjustment that nobody's ever going to notice, okay? So hopefully this gives you a little hope that you don't have to be perfect, all right, in order to come out with a really, really good product, okay? All right. So let me back this up. Okay. So I got everything. All right. And so now it was like, okay, well, if I look at the yellow that's coming through the glass, it doesn't quite match that orange color for the background. So I need to make some kind of color correction. Okay. And that's what I did. I apply a curves adjustment directly above it, right? And I clipped it and I make my adjustments so that that little bit of yellow there now matches the background. Okay, so let me turn it off, turn it on. Okay. Now, how do I do that? Well, you kind of saw me do it. I played around with the RGB, which is your luminosity, how bright, how dark, okay? But because I'm also dealing with color correcting in a way, I also played around with 2 different channels. The red channel, and in this case, I didn't have to apply anything, and the blue channel, in this case, I didn't have to apply anything, okay? So those are the 3 areas on all of these curves adjustments that I touched, okay? Now, why did I not touch the blue and the red in this particular case? All right, because it's coming through glass. I don't need it to match perfectly, all right? As long as it kind of sort of looks like it belongs there, like that color is being transmitted through. So this is a case where close enough is good enough, all right? Other areas where, like for example, where you're seeing it through clear glass, right? And it needs to match, then I'm going to be a little bit more particular, okay? All right, so for example, oops, come on. And these water droplets that, and you can see how I'm not even 100% perfect. Oh my God, that's terrible. All right, there's my water droplets. Let me get a brush, black. Okay. All right, there is a little bit of a halo around all these water droplets. I don't know if you can see it. It's kind of subtle. All right. because the color, or rather the brightness was just that little bit off, just a little bit, okay? So what I did is, again, I created a curves adjustment above that, and I adjusted it until that halo is gone, all right? So I darkened it a little bit. Let's see, what did I do? There you go. I darkened it just a touch. Let's see, did I do anything in the red? Nothing in the red. Anything in the blue? Nothing in the blue. All right, so I got lucky with that one, okay? And it just, that little bit of darkening made it disappear, okay? Kept doing the same thing with all the other parts. This part up here, all right? Added a curves, did I add a curves adjustment? No, no, I did not. I didn't need one for that. That looks pretty clean. Okay, and that's it. All right. All right, so once all my pieces were in place, I now start looking at this a little bit critically. All right, and it's time to do some corrections. It's time to do some healing if it needs to, okay? One of the things that I noticed is right along here, okay? I don't know if you can pick it up, but let me zoom in a little bit. All right, I've actually destroyed some of the mask, but I want you to look at this section here, which is part of one image. All right, oops. And, let me slide this over. And this section here, which is part of the grapes, okay? You notice that there's a very distinct highlight going on right there, all right? Now, if I were to hide that, all right, and also hide my mask, you can see how there's that highlight there, all right, and there's a few other along the line. That highlight is missing in here, all right, and it's also, it didn't quite match. So what I did is I took a section from this one. I took this section here, all right. Let me move this up a little bit. What I did is I made a selection like this, okay? Control J will duplicate it, but it'll only duplicate what you selected, all right? And then I applied it and used a little bit of puppet warp to put it in. All right, so now I have something that carries over from this image, carries it over into this way. All right, so I can now blend the two a little bit better. Now, I couldn't use the original because if you remember, the original took a dive like this, okay? And it was just a horrendous splash, all right? But by taking it and repositioning it, all right, I can now make it seamlessly blend and keeping all those bubbles and details. So that was a nice little addition, all right? So it's the little things like this that you now have to be very picky about and figure out how can I correct it, okay? All right, let me back out. The next one I did was I applied more splashes over on the left-hand side, all right? And I basically just took the splashes from another image, copied it over, masked it, and applied it. And then, you know, the color didn't quite match, so I applied a curves adjustment, okay? Now, time to get really critical. All right. The whole time I'm working on this, what do you think is really jumping out at me? That reflection right there. Okay. So time to get rid of that reflection. For that, let me, actually, no, before I even got there, I remember what I did. I said, you know what? This is kind of empty above here. I wish I had a better clump of grapes to work with, because that kind of just looks off. So I said, let me see if I can just isolate a single grape. So what I did is I isolated a single grape, okay? And I kind of placed it there so it looks like it's just, in the chaos it came loose, all right? And I says, well, that doesn't quite match. Everything else is wet, and here we have a dry grape. So I took a droplet from somewhere else, and I applied it. Okay. So, little things like that really, really do well, okay? And then I also noticed this little area here, all right, where the mask didn't quite blend it in very well. So what I did is I did a little touch up and blended it in. So now you can see that it transitions across a little better, okay? Let me turn that off, turn that on, okay? And if you notice, I am inserting these layers where I need to, okay? I'm not putting it right on top of everything, all right? I applied it where I need to, okay? All right, the next one was my highlight killer, all right? I wanted to kind of get rid of this highlight. I'm okay with this one here. Judgment is still out on it. I'll probably end up getting rid of it anyway. All right. But my highlight killer, all right, all that is a curves adjustment. Oh, why do I always do this? All right. Curves adjustment literally just darkens things down, right? And all I do is on the mask, I just masked in all the areas that were very, very bright. Took a little bit of time to paint it in, but that's what it does, right? If you want to see what the mask looks like, right, you can see very sloppy. God, that's sloppy. My God, I should fire myself, right? Okay. But it does the job. All right. Areas I used a percentage of black rather than full black in order to make it kind of blend in. So this isn't as bright as this area. All right. So I didn't need to darken it as much. Okay. Next were the spots. All right. Next were the spots. Okay. A lot of spots that, a little one here. Okay. And all I did was I create a blank layer and I used my spot removal tool. And you can see I got rid of a lot of spots. I got rid of some reflections in there and all that good stuff. All right. Everybody see that? Okay. How much is dependent on, how much work you're looking to put into it. Okay. Could I have done more? Probably. All right. But I'm not going to go overly crazy. All right. Last thing, let me zoom out. I feel a sneeze coming on. Hold on. Excuse me. Last thing, little overall tonal control. So I created a curves adjustment. I brightened up everything. All right. So I went from this to this. All right. So kind of contrasty. I just reduced the contrast a little bit, brightened it up. Okay. Simple. All right, now we add the secret sauce. All right, how to make it really sharp and commercial. All right, for this, I used a couple of techniques. The first one that I did was I created a high pass sharpen. Okay. I suggest, all right, I'm not going to go into how to create a high pass sharpen because it's a little bit involved. It's not complicated. It's just a little bit involved in the steps. All right. But create an action that creates a high pass sharpen. And what that does is it looks for all the edges. It creates, let me see if I can turn this off. All right. All right. Notice how it's in overlay mode. I'm going to turn this to normal. Okay. The resulting layer is like this. And if we zoom, if we zoom in, all right, you can see that what it's doing is it's detecting the edges. All right. And wherever it detects an edge, it's going to enhance the contrast, all right, along that edge. Let me zoom in even more. And if you notice what it's doing, it's the majority of the image is 50% gray. Okay, 50% gray. All right, and remember that 50% gray becomes invisible with certain of our layer modes. Okay, and in this case, we're going to be using what was it that I said? Overlay. All right, so if you put a layer of 50% gray, switch it to overlay, it's going to render it neutral, like you can't see anything. If you add any pixels that are darker than 50% gray, it's going to darken everything underneath it because it's a pass-through layer, okay? Anything 50% gray or lighter, it's going to lighten the underlying pixels. Simple, all right? So anything darker darkens, anything lighter lightens, okay? So now if you notice, all our edges has a bit of a halo and a shadow. A halo to the outside and a shadow to the inside. So what that's doing is it's darkening the pixels on one side of that edge and lightening the pixels on the other side of that edge, just along the edge. So it creates that contrast just along the edges. Make sense? All right. And what this does is it gives us a sharpening along all our edge details. Okay. Control 0. All right, so this is what it looks like with no nothing attached to it. Once we turn it to overlay, let me see if I can zoom in here. Okay, turn that off, turn that on. Notice how it really sharpens it. Okay, and what I did is I doubled it up. Okay, I doubled it up. And I'll tell you why I doubled it up, okay? Normally, you won't double it up unless you really, really want that really kind of crunchy, you know, slightly overdone sharpening, okay? But right now, what you are seeing is that edge sharpen applied to my original image. Okay, my original image. Okay, but what I don't want to do is I don't want to apply that sharpening to my original image. All right, so let me turn that off, because if you look, there's a little bit of grain going on in the image. All right, and what I should have done is I should have corrected for that grain back in Lightroom before I imported all my images into Photoshop, right? But I didn't. I was stupid. My mistake. Now I got to correct it. Okay? But that's okay. We can correct it. So what I do is I create a stamped layer. All right? What's a stamped layer? Okay, so right now, this image is comprised of a background and 6 parts, plus additional adjustments and a few other little odds and ends added to it. Okay, and they're all in different layers. All right, so if I were to flatten it, all right, it collapses all those layers into a single image. All right. And I can work with that, but what happens is if I need to make any changes, I've destroyed all my work. Okay, so I don't want to destroy all my work. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put it all into a folder. All right, so let me just take these 3 and move these above. Okay, so what I do is I click on the top one, I click on the bottom one, all right, and I group it into a folder, all right. What I did in this case, let me get rid of that blue one. Delete, yes. All right, what I did in this case is I just kept my background layer different, all right. Could I have put it into the group? Sure, but I didn't want to, okay. So with that, where it's at now, I press and hold my Control-Alt-Shift for you window people, Command-Option-Shift for you Mac people, and then the letter E. All right. Control-Alt-Shift-E. All right. And now it creates a duplicate as if you had combined all those layers together. It creates a duplicate flattened layer, all right? And it keeps, all right, there it is, bam. On one layer, everything, okay? All right, the reason I do that is for a couple of reasons. One, I'm gonna need it to create my high-pass sharpen copies, okay? But I also want to apply some denoise to this, okay? So for this, I go to Filter, Noise, Reduce Noise, all right? And what I'll do is I will just, in this case, I really pushed it, all right? Because I wasn't too concerned about how this particular layer looks, all right? Because I'm going to apply the high pass sharpen to this. And the high pass sharpen is based on the prior image. I hope I'm not confusing you because this is a little bit complicated, all right? So I do okay. All right. I now have my layer that has the denoise, and you can see that it looks a little plasticky. All right. We've lost a lot of the detail. All right. But what I've done is I've gotten rid of all the noise in these areas, which is kind of nice, right? Okay. All right, I'm just going to go ahead and delete that because I don't need 2 copies of it. All right, because I have that one. Okay. So I have, that's my prepped layer. Okay. I'm going to need that later. All right. So for now, I'm going to hide it. All right. Go back to my original. Now remember, my original has all this noise, but I don't care. That's fine. All right. From that, I am going to create my high pass sharpen. All right. And again, I showed you what that does. It just takes a detail and just kind of sharpens it. Okay. And I duplicated it. All right. And instead of applying it to my original image, what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply it to the image that I did all that noise reduction to. All right. So you can see right here, I have my high pass sharpen, my duplicate high pass, and it's sitting on top of that that layer that I did the noise reduction to that's now hidden. Watch what happens as soon as I turn that on. Voila. All my noise is gone. All right. Oops. All right. But it no longer looks plasticky. Okay. All right, look at all that detail. Look at all that detail. Okay. And that's pretty much it. That was my secret sauce to give me a really clean looking image. All right. Now I'm sure your brains are going, ow, 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 right? Yeah. Okay. Any questions?
Let me get back to my screen here. Could you put the screen back up for a sec? For when you were, what's the question? When you, oh, so this high pass sharpen. That's an action you create, and then you run it, and then this is the resultant. Is this layer that's created?
Right. It creates
Okay.
that layer right there.
Okay.
Okay. And because it's an action, I can run it anytime without having to think, because it's a little involved. You got to create layers. You got to create, stamp layers. You got to apply, some, I can't even remember actually. There are certain things that you just don't need to think about all the time. Okay. So here's my high pass sharpen layer. All right. Merge visible, set current layer. All right. Does a high pass filter. All right. So filter high pass. Actually, no, that's all. That's it. It's the frequency separation. That's the one that's complex. All right. So here, what I do is.
Is that self-made? Did you put that together, or is that part of the software?
Oh, I made that.
Yes.
I made that. Yeah, I made that. See, ducks retouching actions. All right. White products on white background, skin smoothing, high pass, frequency, dodge and burn. I got blemish removal, skin tone, teeth whitening, face dodge and burn, iris. So a lot of the typical ones that I use over and over and over again. So rather than go through all the steps to do it, I just create an action. And then you notice that I also have a shortcut key attached to all of these. Okay. So all of these are accessible with a very quick shortcut key. And I just hit the shortcut key. Actually, I don't even hit the shortcut key. I'll tell you what I did. I use my little, here, let me switch to chat. Okay. Home, Photoshop. This is my Stream Deck. I don't know. Let me see if it'll, all right. There's all my actions right there. So at a click of a button, I can activate all those, and I have more here. All right, with a little space. It's not really focusing. Okay. Stream Deck. Elgato Stream Deck. All right. Plugs into a USB port. Okay. So all of these shortcut keys are programmed into my Stream Deck, and they're mapped. So all I do is I hit the key on the Stream Deck. It does the action in Photoshop for me. Okay. So it looks like this. I'll show you. Let me go ahead and mask those off. Here we go. Let me go to Photoshop, high pass, hit OK. All right, so it stops here. All right, I have the action stop here because this is where I make my adjustment. How strong do I want my edges to be? All right, so it's usually anywhere between 2 and 4, 2 and 6. All right, hit OK. All right, and there it is, my high pass sharpen. Turn it off, turn it on. Let me zoom in, actually. Okay, turn it off, turn it on. All right, look how nice and sharp that just brings out all that detail, doesn't it? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's all it does. All right, and here we'll delete that one. Okay, so anything where you find you're doing over and over and over again, I really suggest turning it into an action. All right. So eventually you get into the habit of relying on the action. So when it comes time to actually manually do it, you space out like I just did, which is okay as long as you have the action. Okay. All right.
Easy for you to say.
All right. I think we'll need to do a refresher.
I want to make sure I'm clear on when you were doing this, creating the curve layer above the image layer to
All right, here, let me see.
get rid of that background. So that was, you create a curve layer above it, and then you link it to the one right below it, and only
Correct.
that one. Is
Yep.
that how that works?
All right, let me just rename these. Okay. So which one was? Let me turn this off so we can see it. Was it this one? No, it was. Which one was it? Nope, that wasn't it either. This is the one. Okay. All right. So let me zoom in. Okay. Was it that one?
Well, just the creation of curve
Yeah.
layer. I just wanted to make sure I got the steps right. How you created it, and linked it to. I think you just linked it to the image
All
below
right.
it some way.
Yeah. So.
Okay.
So what I do is, all right, when you get this dialog box, there's a couple ways to do it. All right. When you first create it, it's going to look like this. All right. So anything you do to that curve is going to attack and change and modify anything, all the layers below it. All right. Wherever it is on your stack, anything below it, it's going to modify it. Okay. In this case, I only wanted to modify the layer immediately below it. So I can either, let me go back to my, all right, that little icon right there. All right, with the square that represents the layer mask or the layer, and then the little arrow that points to the layer below it. Okay, that one right there. As soon as I click that, you'll notice that this little arrow now appears, right? And you can see how it indented that layer. Right, it indents that layer icon and it points to the layer below it. So that indicates that that adjustment is locked to the layer below. Okay. Okay. The other way you can do it All right. The other way you can do it is if you hover, let's see if I can do it with the spotlight. If you hover, all right, and no, maybe not on. All right, if you hover in between and you press the Alt key or the Option key, all right, it has a very short window. You have to get it like literally right in between those two layers. All right, you'll notice that it changes to that layer clipping icon and then just click. Oh, and it locks it down. Okay. I find it's easier because I'm already going to be adjusting my layer with this dialog box open. It's easy just to click it here rather than trying to, you know, finagle it in between the two layers and whatever. Okay. And of course, you can always unlink it or hover in between and unlink it there. Okay. Make sense?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. All right. Now you can have multiple. All right, let's do another curves adjustment. All right, this one I'm gonna really darken it up. All right, and you notice how it's affecting everything. So if I click there, it's going to affect just that layer below it. Okay, but in this case, because the layer below is also an adjustment layer, okay, it's going to go through that. All right, because if you notice, look at the masks that are generated by each time you create an adjustment layer, it creates a mask. Okay, the mask is white. That means it's going to let that adjustment pass through, all right, and affect the layer below it. Okay, so because this layer, it has a white mask, okay, whenever I clip a layer above it, it's going to pass through this one and continue down until it reaches that level, all right, and it stops right there. Okay, if this mask had something here, all right, let's say this was all black except for that little bit, this layer would pass down only through that little opening there before going down. All right, so you have to be careful how you do this when you're layering effects that are clipped to a layer. All right, it's always going to go through the smallest opening. All right, so make sure that you're careful with your masks. If your mask steps down, make sure they go from big to little. All right, not from little to big. Otherwise, you'll have some really wonky stuff. All right. Now, hopefully that made sense. Okay. All right. Any other questions? All right. Gloria, did I fry your brain again?
Every
You tried
time,
mine.
always.
Oh my goodness. Okay. All right.
Chuck,
Yeah.
what you were saying about multiplicity, so this basically is the multiplicity class,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. So with the multiplicity, the way it would work is we would start off with, I always tell people, you want to start off with a blank plate. So whatever scene you're going to create, you know, let's say there's, let's say it's a playground, all right, and there's a swing set and some monkey bars and a seesaw, all right. That's your blank plate, all right. Then you put yourself into it. Maybe you're hanging off the monkey bars, all right. Well, you don't need to go and clip out the entire monkey bar. You just need, you know, because your camera is on a tripod, you just need to mask out yourself, all right, and the monkey bars are already there in the background plate, So you just put yourself onto the monkey bars. Same thing goes with the seesaw. All right. Same thing goes with the slide. All right. Maybe you took a picture yourself, like you just pushed yourself off the top of your slide. All right. Then you take another photo halfway down the slide, and then a third photo of you down at the bottom of the slide. You composite all three, and now it looks, you know, you get that visual, you know, process of going down the slide all within that one frame. You know, so you don't have to mask out the entire slide. You just mask out yourself at the top and in the middle and in the bottom, and bam, you're done. Literally. Okay. The only adjustments would be is, as you know, if you're photographing outdoors, sometimes the light, the sun goes, you know, behind a cloud, and the cloud disappears and you get bright sun. So you're going to get that fluctuation of exposure. All right. So this is where you would get your curves adjustment, and you say, ooh, me at the top of the slide is pretty bright because, you know, the sun must have come out, so I can darken it down. And then down at the bottom it says, oh, the clouds were really heavy and blocking out the light, so maybe I need to add an adjustment there to boost it up a little bit, just to balance the whole scene out. All right. So yes, it's the same exact procedure whenever you're doing any kind of compositing. All right. In this case, we went with something that looks very complex, but hopefully after breaking it down, you'll say to yourself that, you know what, it looks pretty rad, but it really is not that difficult to do. All right. And hopefully it'll give you some ideas to try something on your own. Start off with something simple, and then, you know, progress to something a little bit more complicated. Right?
Yes, and that generated another question. On the layer that you cleaned up, that I guess it's the one that goes across the base of the glass, and then down below it there's all those dots all those drops you cleaned up.
Yep.
And I think you used the smart
the magic wand
selection tool, quick selection tool.
Yep.
Now, was there a step in there where you transferred that selection over to the mask? Use that quick selection tool to turn that into a mask, and then went working from there?
Yeah. All right.
I remember as you were talking about that, you seemed like you did that once on a landscape. You did something where you clicked on it, and then you, instead of drawing a mask, you generated one by doing something. Is that what this was?
I know exactly what you're talking about. No, this was a slightly different technique. Okay.
Okay.
So, for example, if you look at my layer stack here, I have all these masks already built for all these layers, right? And let's say I create a curves adjustment just for shits and giggles. All right, I'll bring it to the top. And I say, okay, for this curves adjustment, I only want to target, let's say, the grapes. Okay. So I say, well, I already have a selection for the grapes. I don't need to make another selection because I have it right here. Okay. So now if I press and hold, let me get back out of here. All right. You have to make sure that you have the mask selected. All right. In order for this to work, the mask has to be selected. Press and hold the control key, or command key on the Mac, and click on the mask. All right. And you'll notice you get the marching ants. All right. See the marching ants? All right. So what that did is it made a selection based on the mask that's already built. Okay? That's what you saw me do previously. All right, so now all I got to do is come over to the new layer that I want to apply it to. All right, and I'm going to do Alt. Oh, in this case, let's see. I want black as my foreground. Oops, black is my foreground color. All right, Alt Delete. Okay, and you notice that it applied black just to the selection area. Okay, because the selection I made was just the grapes. All right, what I want to do is I want to mask out the grapes. All right, so normally I would do an inverted mask, but for me it's easier, just click, fill it, all right, get rid of the marching ants, and then invert it. All right, and I'm done. All right, and now I can do whatever I want, and it's just going to affect that mask. All right, so now you say, okay, well, I don't want it to get all this other stuff. All right, well, at this point now I can just use my brush tool and modify accordingly. All right, so sometimes it's just a matter of finding a mask that gets you kind of all the way there, and then just refine it to get it the rest of the way. Make sense? Okay. And that was ooh, that's terrible. All right. Obviously you want to take your time with the masks. I'm being sloppy just for illustrative purposes here. All right. But let's say you don't want the stem, you just want the, all right. And so, you know, let's say you also want this, this stream here. All right. Well, I happen to have that mask already built. So Control, Command, click. There's my marching ants. Okay. So I can, here is another way you can do it. You can say, okay, I'm going to go to my lasso tool, my selection tool. All right. I'm going to use the Alt key or Option key to turn it into a negative, and I can subtract. Let's say I don't want all this other stuff. All right. And then now I can get my brush, white as my foreground color, and I can just paint in there. So that's another way of doing it. All right. More than one way to skin a cat. Well, yeah, no, I mean, come on. You know, it's once you learn a trick,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, how can I use it here? How can I use it there? You know? So just remember, Control, Command, click, get the marching ants, and then go from there. Adjust it as needed. Okay? All right. Control 0. That looks horrendous.
Another great night. Another super
Awesome,
super
awesome. Oh, before I forget, on Facebook, on Facebook, I put up 2 polls on the Learn Photography with Duck site. Okay. One is asking about off-camera flash workshop. Jesse and I were having a discussion the other day. If you haven't been to Milford Photo in a while for some of their workshops, they got rid of their classroom. When COVID hit, it kind of killed the in-person workshops. So they ended up closing up the classroom downstairs and turning it into more storage space that they needed and everything. And they figure we'll cross that bridge when it gets here. Okay. Well, the building next to them, which used to be, I think, the library or something or other, that's now vacant, and they have access to it with permission from the city to use it on occasion. So we were thinking, can we get some kind of workshop going in that section of the building? And I said, well, what about a lighting workshop? Where we can set up, a station with multiple lights and just walk people through the whole entire process. And he says, that's a great idea. So it got me to thinking, the majority of the workshops that most people go to are only a couple hours, and they kind of cover just the rudimentaries. And I know for me, I used to walk away. It's like, really, what did I learn? Because the instructor, in order to get through everything so quickly, literally gives you all the settings, and you walk away learning what? That you can put your camera into settings that some guy told you? What did you really learn? All right. So I said, well, what if we were to do a slightly longer class where we really challenge everybody, all right, and walk them through? And actually, I've done this in the past. What I do is I explain the fundamentals. You know me, if I give you the fundamentals, you should be able to apply them, across the board. So I give you the fundamentals, then I scramble all the numbers and say, go for it. And then let you struggle through. All right. But I'm right there to kind of guide you and work the problem out. So hopefully, you retain it a little bit better. All right. So this requires, a longer time period. So the poll is out there. I got 2 questions. Would you be interested in a half day or a full day? And please be honest. And, what is it worth to you for, workshops like this? All right. I have, keep it under 50 or keep it under 100. All right. And I'm thinking, in my head, I'm thinking for a full day, about $80. That sounds fairly reasonable to me. I used to do $80 for a couple hours back in the day, The other one came about from a group chat on Facebook, which is the Connecticut Models, Photographers, and Makeup Artists group. I don't know if any of you are part of that. There's a lot of talk about, there's always new models looking for, I'd love to do some testing. I want to learn. I want to learn how to pose. I want to learn how to work as a photographer. I want to learn to build a portfolio. So I said, you know what? That's a good workshop to put together. What about a mutual workshop where models learn to work with photographers and photographers learn to work with models? All right. And then we have, this would definitely be a full day workshop. We have 3 lighting scenarios, 1 with continuous light, 1 with big studio strobes, and 1 with small flashes. Okay. And people can rotate through and practice what they learn. So that's the other poll. If you're interested in that, go ahead and fill it out. I'd appreciate it. And once I get everything together, I'll, the lighting class, I'll compile it with Jesse. The modeling class, it'll probably be myself and 1 other photographer if I can corral her into doing it. And we'll take it from there. Maybe I'll get, everybody know Rich Bush? No? All right. He's amateur photography, likes working with models. Maybe, you know, I'll get him to work with me. So anyway, those are up there. If you can, give me your feedback. I'd appreciate it. And then that's it. So that's pretty much it for today. I hope you learned something good. I hope I didn't fry too many brain cells. All righty, guys. As always, it's a pleasure. Oh, one more thing. We have an extra week this week, or this month, rather. I want to get a Patreon workshop for my Patreons, which, you know, the three of you are. So if you have an idea or something that you want me to cover that I haven't in a while or never covered before, shoot me a message or an email and let me know what you want. And because I don't know what I'm going to do for it yet, but I know I want to do something for you guys. Okay? All right. With that, I release you. We're definitely over time, but hey, you know, we covered a lot. As always, I really, really do appreciate you guys hanging out with me. I also do appreciate you being my Patreon members. Your contributions do help out a lot. So we'll see you next week.
Good night.
Good night.
For watching Learning Photography with Duck. Brought to you in association with Milford Photo, your local full-service camera store. Located in downtown Milford, Connecticut, Milford Photo offers you a personalized shopping experience. From the latest camera gear to printing and framing services. And, of course, educational workshops to teach you the finer aspects of photography. Don't forget to tell them Duck sent you.